Welcome to our today's anatomy class. In our today's class, we'll be looking at a very important structure known as the cerebrum. The cerebrum is the largest part of the human brain. So this is the cerebrum right here. This is the cerebrum. This is the cerebrum. This is the cerebrum. Below the cerebrum, we have what we call the brainstem. We have the brainstem. Then posteriorly, we have the cerebellum. So the cerebrum and the cerebellum are two different structures. My next class, I'll be talking about the cerebellum. But in today's class, we'll be dwelling on the cerebrum. So the cerebrum is the largest part of the human brain, and it occupies the anterior and middle cranial fossa. It occupies the anterior and middle cranial fossa. Is space within what? Within the skull. So the cerebrum is divided into two hemispheres. So the cerebrum is divided into two hemispheres. Two hemispheres. So this is the left hemisphere, left cerebral hemisphere. This is the left cerebral hemisphere. And this is the what? This is the right cerebral hemisphere. So, what divides the cerebrum into hemispheres is the cerebrum is divided into two hemispheres by a longitudinal cerebral fissure, a structure called longitudinal cerebral fissures divides the cerebrum into left and right hemisphere. The left and right hemisphere of the cerebrum is connected by a bundle of nerve fibers known as corpus callosum. So the corpus callosum connects the what? The left and right cerebral hemisphere, so that information can move from one hemisphere to another what? Hemisphere. It is important to note that the right hemisphere of the cerebrum controls the left part of the body, while the left cerebral hemisphere controls the right part of the human body. So having said that, it is equally important to note that the cerebrum is divided into lobes. The cerebral cortex precisely is divided into what? Into lobes. So what are the lobes? What are the lobes of the cerebrum? The lobes of the cerebrum. One, we have the frontal lobe. We have the frontal lobe. We have the parietal lobe. We have the temporal lobe, and we also have the occipital. We have the occipital lobe. So these are the lobes of the cerebrum. So these lobes are separated. These lobes are separated or bounded by sulci. So sulci separates, a deep sulci separates the frontal lobe from what? If the frontal lobe from the parietal lobe superiorly, while the parietal lobe is separated from the temporal lobe by another sulci, by another sulcus, I mean to say. While the parietal lobe and the temporal lobe are separated by another sulcus. They are separated from the occipital lobe by another what? Another sulcus. So this is a sulcus right here. This sulcus is called the central sulcus. It's a boundary of the lobes. So the central sulcus separates the frontal lobe and it separates the frontal lobe from the parietal lobe and the temporal lobe. While this lateral sulcus right here, the lateral sulcus separate the temporal lobe from the parietal lobe. And this sulcus called the parieto-occipital sulcus separate the occipital lobe from the parietal and the temporal lobe. So it is important to note that the cerebrum is thrown into fold. It has many infoldings. It has many what? Infoldings. These folds are known as gyri. These folds are known as gyri. They are known as gyri. The singular term for gyri is called a gyrus. So this is a gyrus. This is a gyrus. This is another gyrus. This is another gyrus. So we have many gyrus. We have many gyra in the what? In the cerebral cortex, in the outer part of the cerebrum. So in the outer part of the cerebrum, it is thrown into folds. Each of these folds is called gyrus. While the folds collectively are referred to as gyri. So these gyri are separated by a shallow space known as sulci. So they are referred to as what? Sulci. While the singular term for sulci is called sulcus. So this right here, between these gyrus and this gyrus, there is a sulcus. So in between gyri, we have what? Spaces, shallow groups, known as what? Known as sulcus. The plural term for sulcus is called sulci. So I would say that it is important to note that the lobes of the cerebrum carry out different functions. So the frontal lobe, for instance, is responsible for what? For motor control. It's responsible for motor control. It's responsible for decision making. It also play a role in what? It play a role in judgment, our ability to judge. It play a role in self-control, among other functions. It even play a role in our reasoning. The reasoning of humans are dependent on what? On the frontal lobe. While the parietal lobe process sensory impulses coming from different parts of the brain. Sensory impulses like the impulse of pain, the impulse of pressure, the impulse of temperature, the impulse of touch, among others. So all these impulses from different structures in the body are conveyed to what? To the parietal lobe, where they are processed and interpreted. While the temporal lobe contain what? The hippocampus. Because it contains the hippocampus, it serves as what? As a center for memory formation. So memory are formed within the what? The temporal lobe. The temporal lobe also play a role in language, play a role in speech. It also play a role in hearing, because the auditory areas for hearing are situated within the temporal lobe. And finally, the occipital lobe receives and what? Interpret visual impulses. Hence, it is responsible for visual processing. It controls vision. So I would say that it is important to note that the cerebrum has three functional areas. The cerebrum has what? Three functional areas. So what are the functional areas of the cerebrum? We have the motor area. This motor area is divided into two parts, divided into primary motor area and what? And motor or Broca speech area. Secondly, we have the sensory area. which is composed of somatosensory area, test area, visual area, auditory area, and what lastly, olfactory area. While the third functional area of the cerebrum is called the association area. It's called the association area. So the motor area controls voluntary movement. This motor area is made up of two parts: primary motor area and motor speech area, or what we call the Broca area. Because the area was first discovered by Paul Broca. The primary motor area controls voluntary movement. So the primary motor area in the right part of the cerebrum control voluntary movement in the left part of the body, while the primary motor area in the left part of the cerebrum control movement in the right part of the human body. And the motor speech area control voluntary movement that are associated with speech, and the movement of our mouth, among other structures. While the sensory area receive and processes what sensory informations from different parts of the body. For example, the somatosensory area is situated in the parietal lobe of the cerebrum. It's situated in the parietal lobe. The test area is also situated in the parietal lobe. The visual area is situated in the occipital lobe of the cerebrum. The auditory area is situated in the temporal lobe of the cerebrum. The olfactory area is situated in the temporal lobe of the what? In the temporal lobe of the cerebrum. It's important to equally note that this motor area is precisely in the frontal lobe. So in the frontal lobe, we have the motor speech area and the primary motor area. But in the sensory areas encompasses the parietal lobe, the occipital lobe, and even the temporal lobe. So the somatosensory area receives sensory impulses of touch, of pain, of temperature, of pressure from different receptors in the human body and interprets these impulses. The visual areas receive sensory impulses for vision and interprets it. While the auditory area receive auditory information for hearing. It receives the information from the ear and it interprets this information. The olfactory area receive information from neurons in the nose and interprets this information. Then lastly, the association area. The association area receive impulses from motor area and sensory area and integrate this information, these impulses. When these impulses are integrated, it results to higher cognitive abilities, like reasoning, like judgment, among other complex mental activities. So complex mental activities like reasoning, like judgment, self-control is usually control in the association area, because this area receive informations from the motor and the sensory area, then try to integrate this information to make meaning out of these impulses coming from these two areas. So having said that, let's quickly look at the blood supply to this important structure. Blood supply meaning the arteries and the veins that are related to these structures. Now, the arterial supply, first of all, the arterial supply is supplied by superior, middle, and inferior cerebral arteries. So these arteries, it's important to know that they are branches. They are branches of the anastomosis in the brain, branches of cycle of Willis. The entire brain is supplied by cycle of what? Of Willis, which is an arterial anastomosis between the basilar, between the internal carotid arteries and the vertebral arteries. So these are branches. This branch called superior cerebral artery, middle cerebral artery, and inferior cerebral arteries. They originate from this anastomosis called the cycle of Willis. Why the venous drainage? The venous drainage is by the cerebral veins in the cerebrum drain into dura venous sinuses, sinus. From dura venous sinuses finally drain into the internal jugular veins, which finally empty to the heart. So this is the venous drainage. Small cerebral veins drain into dura venous sinuses, which finally empty into the internal jugular vein. So I will say that what are the clinical correlates of these structures? Clinical correlates. One, stroke. Two, epilepsy. Three, we have condition called brain tumor. Alzheimer disease. Then lastly, Parkinson disease. So these are clinical conditions that are associated with the cerebrum. Now, stroke happens when there's a disruption of blood supply to the cerebrum. When there's a damage of blood supply to the cerebrum, it results to death of cells in the cerebrum, which will result to stroke. Why epilepsy results from what? From abnormal electrical activities in the cerebrum, resulting to seizures. So when there's an abnormal electrical activities in the cerebrum, it results to seizures, which is one of the primary symptoms of epilepsy. Then brain tumor. Brain tumor also usually originates from the what? From the cerebrum. In fact, it is the most common site of tumor in the brain. So tumors are abnormal growth. Tumors can originate from the cerebrum or surrounding structures of the cerebrum. Then Alzheimer's disease. So Alzheimer's disease is it's a disease that is characterized by loss of memory and even cognitive decline. This disease is also associated with the cerebrum. In this disease, there's usually degenerations of neurons within the cerebrum and even the surrounding structures of the cerebrum, like the hippocampus. While Parkinson's disease is also a neurodegenerative disease whereby there's a progressive damage of the dopaminergic neurons in the substantia nigra of the basal ganglia that lies within the cerebrum. So this is how far we'll be going with this structure called the cerebrum. Remember that it is the largest part of the human brain. My name is Simon. I am an anatomy educator. I look forward to seeing you in my next class. Remember to subscribe and share.